Hello, hi, how are you? How are you? How are you? So, today we are going to start doing combined science. We're starting off our syllabus for combined science, and we are starting off with the biology section. And the first topic is characteristics of living organisms. Characteristics of living organisms. So, before we get into the lesson, just remember learning is supposed to be fun. I know you probably have exams and all of those things, and it's like, but just remember learning is supposed to be fun, and that's why we try to make the content as interesting as possible so that you can be interested in learning, because learning is supposed to be fun. So relax, take down some notes, um, you know just relax, just chill, just get into the comfy mood and just go over. You want to listen to this audio, you want to watch this video, I mean, over and over and over and over again, and everything will stick into your head eventually. So we want to start with the first topic: characteristics of living organisms. So before we get into the characteristics of living organisms, we want to define the terms, right? We want to define them so that we know what they mean. What does characteristic mean? What does living mean? What does organism mean? So we know what we are saying. So characteristics means attributes or aspects of something. For example, if you say an elephant has a long nose, right? It's an attribute, it's an aspect of an elephant. Or this guy right here, um, Kevin Hart, is short, is very short. It's a characteristic, it's an aspect of Kevin Hart, right? Then living, that's a no-brainer. It just means alive or with life. Organisms, it means a living thing that has or can develop the ability to act or function independently. So, for example, a plant, a dog, right? It's a living organism. It has the ability uh, to act or function independently. For example, a human being can be able to function independently. A plant is able to function independently to do all the processes that it does independent on its own, right? It gets its own nutrients from the soil. It converts the water and the carbon dioxide to make carbohydrates in photosynthesis. So it is able to function on its own, right? Or so it's an organism, something that has or can develop the ability to act or function. When we say something that can develop, for example, if you are still in your mother's womb, you are not functioning independently. That you need your mother whilst you're in your womb to be able to live, right? So, but you can then, but you will also be developing that ability as you're growing, right, until you get born. So a living thing has or can develop the ability to act or function independently. For example, a plant, a dog. So what are we saying here? Partitioner in Shona we say turukuti chi panapa. We are saying what are the aspects that all living organisms have that makes them all placed in a group of living organisms. What are the things that we are looking at? What are the aspects that we are looking at all things and saying if they have this quality and this quality and this quality, then they are living organisms. So that's what we want to talk about when we say characteristics of living organisms. Okay, let's go. So the first characteristic of living organisms, I remember when I was a kid, I really used to like watching Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and those guys could move. They would do kung fu on each other. It was like, it was the most. Um, so they could move because they are living organisms, right? So what is movement? Is an action by an organism or part of an organism that causes a change of position or place. So if I move my hand, I've changed its position, I've changed its place, right? If I move from point A to point B, if I walk to the door from my office, I've moved, right? So that's movement. Animals can run, plants can move by growing in the direction of light, even bending. So if you have ever seen that, if you even have like a flower and you put it close to your window, it might start growing, even bending towards the window so that it gets the sunlight. So it's movement, right? So that's the first quality of living organisms. They move, just like Jackie Chan here. Then number two is they respire, respiration, right? What is respiration? It refers to the chemical reactions in cells that break down nutrient molecules and release energy. So when you eat food, you're eating nutrients, right? those nutrient molecules have to be broken down so the energy that they carry can be released so that the body can use the energy. So respiration are those chemical reactions in cells that breaks down the nutrient molecules to release what? Energy. Right? Then let's go to the third characteristic of living organism. It's sensitivity. It is the ability to detect and respond to changes in the internal and external environment, right? So just you being able to sense, to detect things, to detect and respond to changes, right, in the internal and external environment. For example, if you touch a hot stove, right, it's an external thing that you've touched, right? It's outside of your body, right? If you touch it, you detect the stimuli. The stimuli is the heat that you feel and on your hands, right? And so you are able to detect that change, that this is now hot, right? And respond by removing your hand from the hot stove. So that's what we mean when we say sensitivity. And that's the same thing that happens even inside our bodies, right? When, for example, glucose levels rise in our blood, our bodies are sensitive that our internal environment has now too much glucose. And what does the body do? The body will release, the pancreas will release a hormone called insulin into the blood, which then reduces the amount of glucose that we have in the blood. So that's sensitivity so the body is able to detect that there's a change in the amount of glucose in the blood, and then to respond by releasing or secreting insulin into the blood. The insulin comes from the pancreas. Then the next characteristic of living organisms is growth. So when we're talking about growth, we're talking about a permanent increase in size and dry mass by an increase in cell number or cell size or both, right? So an increase in dry mass, it is when you're growing, you're increasing in your dry mass, right? And how does that increase happen? It increases because the cells of your body are multiplying and they're becoming more, or they're increasing in their size, or both of these things is happening. So for human beings, it's both of them happening, right? So that's growth, right? That's another characteristic of living organism. Another characteristic of living organism is excretion. What is excretion? Is the removal from organisms of toxic materials, right? When we talk about toxic materials, we're talking about the waste products of metabolism. So your body releases toxic materials. Like what is happening here, right? Yeah, this lady is busy releasing toxic materials when somebody else is, I don't know what they're doing. Are they plating each other's hair, or they putting, man, I don't know. Like, would you, would you be comfortable being in the toilet with somebody helping themselves whilst you are trying to put earrings on them or plating their hair? I don't know. These people are crazy. Really, really, really crazy. But anyway, excretion is a removal from organism of toxic materials. So the materials that are harmful to the body, that the body doesn't want, those are what we're calling toxic materials, right? They are being removed when you go to the toilet, for example, in humans, right? Or in animals, they do this by, they excrete like this, right? So excretion is a removal from organisms of toxic materials or waste products of metabolism. What is metabolism? Metabolism is all the processes, all the chemical reactions that are happening in your body, in your cells, so that you are alive, right? So some of the waste products of metabolism are carbon dioxide in human beings and in animals, right? Because after respiration has taken place, which is part of metabolism, it releases carbon dioxide. So it's excreted through the what? The nose. You release carbon dioxide. That's excretion, right? Urine and feces are excreted when you go to the toilet like this. So it's the removal from organisms of toxic materials, waste products of metabolism, and substances in excess of requirement. So if you eat too much bread, you're most likely going to go to the toilet, right? Not because your body doesn't need the starch. It does, but you've just had too much of it, right? So how do you, for examples of excretion, urinating in animals, carbon dioxide released in animals, oxygen is released in plants, because plants take in what? Carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and they release oxygen, which is a waste product of photosynthesis, or it's a byproduct of photosynthesis, right? It's a product. The most appropriate term is a byproduct of photosynthesis. Let's go to another characteristic of living organisms. It's nutrition. And what is nutrition? This guy has just made me feel hungry, you know. I don't know if this is like the biggest hot dog I've ever seen. Yeah, and it just made me hungry. I don't know. I hope it also makes you hungry. Anyway, nutrition, it is the taking in of materials for energy, growth, and development. So for you to have energy, for you to grow, for your body to develop, you need to have nutrition. You need to take materials. So plants require light, carbon dioxide, water, and ions, so they can do photosynthesis, right? Then animals need organic compounds, ions, and usually need water. But most animals, we need water, right? So it's just basically saying we need water, we need organic compounds like starch, like proteins, and we need ions, right? Some of our ions, we get them in salt, some of them we get them in water, right? Dissolved in water. So this is what we need so that we can be able to grow, right, to develop, and to have energy to function. Then this is the last one. This one is not really in your syllabus. It's called homeostasis, but you realize that some of the questions you'll be asked has to do with homeostasis, so you just have to know it. It is the maintenance of a constant internal environment. For example, insulin is secreted, means released into the blood at times when blood glucose levels are high to get it back to normal, right? Sweat glands produce sweat to reduce body temperature if it increases, right? So it's the maintenance of a constant internal environment. Your body has to be maintained at a certain temperature, at a certain glucose level in the blood. So that's homeostasis, that your body has processes. So it's, if, like an example I've already given you, if there's too much glucose, insulin is released so that the glucose levels go back to normal. If your body is temperature is very high, your sweat glands produce sweat so that it can cool your body. Then the last two characteristics of living organisms. I think the last one we've already talked about growth. It's reproduction, right? After these guys finish what they're doing, they are most likely going to have a baby, right? So reproduction is the process that makes more of the same kind of organism. So after these cows finish mating, right? What is going to happen? There's going to be a baby cow, right? Yes. They're going to give birth to a young one, and that's reproduction. So that was of living organisms. I hope you learned something, and I hope you are going to enjoy all the other videos that you're going to be having to watch. So that's it. Our next topic is going to be biology, and we're going to be talking about cells. Okay, I'm out for now. Have a good day. See you.